Once upon a time, in a vast and prosperous African kingdom, there ruled a king named Baranthus. Though he possessed unimaginable wealth, golden palaces, endless feasts, and treasures from distant lands, his heart remained empty. He believed that power lay in riches, that a man's worth was measured by the weight of his gold, and so he ruled with arrogance, demanding loyalty through fear rather than love. One day, as King Baranthus rode through the city in his gilded carriage, his ears caught an unfamiliar sound: laughter. But not just any laughter. It was deep, hearty, and filled with joy. Curious, he turned his head and saw something unusual. An old beggar, dressed in rags, sat beneath a great baobab tree, surrounded by a group of children. They shared a simple meal of bread and fruit, their faces lit with smiles. The king frowned. How could a man who owned nothing laugh so freely? Pulling the reins of his horse, he approached. At once, the people around him bowed, their heads lowered in fear. But the beggar? He merely smiled and nodded in greeting. "You, old man," the king called, "how is it that you laugh so joyfully when you have nothing?" The beggar wiped his hands and stood, his eyes twinkling. "Your Majesty, I may have no gold, no land, no fine robes, but does that mean I have nothing?" The king scoffed. "Without wealth, a man is poor. What else is there?" The beggar chuckled. "Would you care to put that to the test?" Intrigued, the king leaned forward. "A test, you say?" The beggar nodded. "For 1 week, trade places with me. Wear my rags, walk my path, live as I live. And if at the end you still believe gold is the greatest treasure, I shall kneel before you and call myself the fool." Gasps erupted from the crowd. A beggar challenging the king? Yet instead of anger, Baranthus felt amusement. He would prove his point once and for all. The next morning, King Baranthus stood outside his own palace, stripped of his title. His golden crown and royal kente robe lay on a table behind him, symbols of his lost status. Dressed in the beggar's tattered wraps, he stepped beyond the palace gates, alone. For the first time, he felt the sting of the cold wind, the ache of an empty stomach. He knocked on doors, hoping for kindness, but found many shut. He worked for scraps of food, his hands blistered from labor. Hunger gnawed at him. He sat on the roadside, exhausted and weak, holding out his hands for food, but people walked past, ignoring him. For the first time, he understood suffering, the struggle to survive in a world where wealth meant nothing. And yet, in the midst of hardship, he saw something new. A poor widow, though she had little, knelt beside him and offered a small bowl of food. Nearby, a young child handed him a piece of bread, smiling warmly. The king, now humbled, felt something he had never known before, the warmth of true generosity, given freely, without expectation. And the laughter he once questioned? It was real, not forced, not bought with riches. By the end of the week, King Baranthus, thin and humbled, returned to his palace. The royal guards, seeing only a beggar, hesitated. They barely recognized their ruler. His eyes, once filled with pride, now carried wisdom. He had left as a king of wealth and returned as a king of understanding. Dressed once more in his royal robes, King Baranthus stood before the beggar. And then, to the shock of all, he knelt. "You are no fool," he whispered. "I was blind, but now I see. True riches lie not in gold, but in kindness, wisdom, and love." The courtiers and palace officials, dressed in elegant African attire, watched in awe. A new era had begun. From that day forth, King Baranthus ruled with wisdom and compassion, ensuring that no child went hungry, and no man was judged by his wealth alone. And the beggar? He simply smiled and disappeared into the streets. Some say he was a wandering sage. Others believe he was an angel in disguise. But those who truly understood knew he was simply a man who had discovered the greatest treasure of all.